It's our good friend Eric Edholm, Chicago's finest, baby.
Better late than never. I'm sorry I'm a little bit tardy. I had to restart the laptop and technical issues and kids in the background. My hair is looking terrible. I mean, everything's falling apart, but the draft can bring us together, boys. I'm confident of this.
Hey, look, man, it's all wild for everybody this time of year, but especially a guy like you who does this full time for a living. You know, me and Shane, we're part timers here, but Eric, you're full head of steam here, man. So we're gonna.
But you guys are the Wonder Twins, though, man. You activate, man. You put it together and just
make it happen.
Happens. Come on, let's go. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there,
Eric. Let's get right into it. A week ago, it was something different. Now, you look at the odds on every book, minus 1,500 for Bryce Young to go number one.
Yeah.
What flipped here to all of a sudden go from this, and now Bryce Young he's the number one pick in the draft. Where the cards turned in.
Yeah, it is, and I was wrong. I had, you can go look. I don't remember exactly how. 5 minutes after the trade happened between the Panthers and Bears, I said, I just have a feeling it's Stroud. I just, that just seemed to point in his direction. You could see Frank Reich wanting a guy with a little bit more stature in the pocket, a little bit more of a traditional passer in that regard, I guess. But somebody who also has, on occasion, flashed, like Northwestern, Georgia, a couple games where CJ Stroud showed that ability. And it just sort of, there were a few other factors, things that I'd picked up along the way that I think Stroud's their guy. And then he wasn't. And the question I've been asking, because I don't know the answer, and I don't know that it's been reported anywhere, but I don't think you can't tell me that it's 100% in that room. You had to think that there were some pretty strong debates, I would guess. I felt like I could kind of read the tea leaves and that there were some people in that room who liked Stroud better, and that's their prerogative. You don't expect 100% except for generational type prospects. So how much influence does David Tepper have in this? I don't know. Is he the thumb on the scale? Is he the tie-breaking vote? Is he the number one vote? Does he not have a vote? Does he? I mean, of course he does. Owners have a vote on everything, but you know what I'm saying? I'm just throwing that out there. Take that whatever direction you want. I'm sure, obviously, Fitterer had a ton of say in the matter. I'm sure they asked Josh McCown, the new QB coach, what he thought. Frank Reich is going to have a big say as the new head coach. Other personnel guys, but I just wonder. I don't know how it tilted like that.
Well, Eric, I'll kind of go a little bit lower down the board here. I have a question. If you could give me in the crystal ball and show me where one player is going in this first round, to me it'd be Bijan Robinson, the running back out of Texas, because I don't know. He could fall, he could go higher. Where do you think he goes with the running back position being devalued? A lot of the teams looking at him, like Philadelphia, Howie Roseman's not a guy that drafts a running back. What happens with Bijan?
Yeah, I thought you were saying if I could predict a lower pick, which one would it be? And so that's why I was surprised you said Bijan, because I thought, that's like the guy that nobody knows where he's going, right? Yeah. I will say there's a team, I think, in the top 10, not counting the Eagles, because I don't know honestly what if they would, Jordan Davis last year, I would say arguably, even though he's a defensive tackle, theoretically that goes against their draft philosophy too, right? You don't draft 2-down players and that sort of thing. But, they've broken that rule before too. They drafted Danny Watkins, a 27-year-old guard in the first round years ago, and that's still the same philosophy as when Howie, got there and stuff. But I would say, just putting them to the side for a minute, there has been surprising recent buzz on Atlanta at 8. As an early team to watch. And I kept thinking to myself, boy, after you ran the ball effectively without him last year, right? It wasn't like it was a difficult thing, right? And I know that not every draft pick is just filling a hole or solving a problem. You want to draft as many great players as you want, but that wasn't the first player I came up with when I was, starting in January and thinking like, what direction could Atlanta go? I didn't start with Bijan Robinson, but there's been some buzz there, enough that I'm kind of sitting up in my chair and taking notice. Otherwise, obviously the Cowboys have done work on him. They're farther down the chain. I'm sure, they would love to have him, right? I think they'd have to move up for him though. Is Tampa interested? Maybe. So, but that's 19 and 25 or whatever. There's a long way between 8 and 19. Is there another team in there that says, screw it? We love the guy. Do we need a running back at this very moment? No, but who cares? It's possible. So it just depends on maybe who's still sitting there, if there are any movement. And then, if Atlanta or some other team in that area passes on him, how far does he get? I don't know.
He's got to be the hardest player for all of us to mock right now, right?
I think so, right? Be. Yeah. Maybe quarterback 4 too. I don't know. I guess there's enough, trade possibilities and whatnot, or QB 3 or 4 could end up going to a team that lands at a trade. But yeah, Bijan's the one who we know he's going first round. We just don't. I don't know. There's not a real strong arrow pointing one way or the other.
Pick 2, Houston. We just assumed it would be a quarterback. We assumed it would be Bryce Young because I think all three of us, as soon as Carolina got the pick, it was Stroud. You weren't the only one here. Both of us were on that same boat as well. So we assumed Young to Houston. Now it appears that's who they wanted the whole time was Young. That doesn't appear to be a secret now.
Yes, sir.
So now the odds have shifted to them going with Will Anderson as the pick at 2. If that is the case, one, is that just a question of let's get the best player in the draft? And 2, are they a potential possibility to move back up into the top 10 to get one of the other quarterbacks, even as high as 3 with Arizona to come back all the way up? They've got the capital to do it. So it's not like, it wouldn't even hurt them to unload some of these draft picks that they've got. So that, I guess we'll call that a 2-part question. Is it Will Anderson at 2? Is it Tyree Wilson at 2? Or is it one of the quarterbacks? And do they come back up to get a quarterback?
Yeah. You covered a lot on that. And that's exactly where I would have gone, which is, I think they like Will Anderson, but I wonder, how much they're intrigued by Tyree Wilson. And, you see a guy like James Lipford in the scouting department, an up and comer, future GM. A lot of people think around the league, he kind of pointed him towards Stingley and some other guys last year. I think they leaned heavily on his influence. And so, you just try to think about how last year's draft went and how, it can go a little different way than we're all thinking, right? And so I had heard at the combine when, I guess at that point the trade had not happened. I'm trying to remember the timing on this, but basically that QB wasn't a lock at 2. No, and I was a little surprised, but I thought, okay, I guess I can see it, right? If they think they can come up from 12, and obviously a lot's changed since then, right? And so maybe there are a couple teams that love Will Levis more than we realized. And Levis could be the quarterback who goes, he's kind of got in this like, whoa, now he's back up. He could end up going the 3rd pick or the 4th. I think he's going to end up going either to a trade at 3 or a Colts just sit there and take him at 4. So now what happens at Anthony Richardson, I don't know. But then you're thinking, okay, well, which quarterback can they make that move? Are they willing to do that? Okay, if it's doable that way, seems like an awful lot of effort. But to instead of just grabbing the quarterback and then maybe getting a similar quality edge, because I could see a Nolan Smith slipping a little or whatever. I don't know. It just it feels like they're also opening the door for not taking a quarterback in round 1. It's possible. I don't know. I think there'd be torches and pitchforks.
It feels like malpractice if they trot out Davis Mills again.
Right.
Sorry.
And they also brought in, what was his name? Who's the veteran they brought in? I'm just blanking. But 2 guys who don't have a future with the with the franchise, but they're placeholders or whatever. And this is setting the table for what? That's what everyone's been expecting and debating for 4 months now. And I don't know. I still haven't figured out what I'm doing on my last mock. So, This year's crazy, guys. I don't know. This is a hard one.
I feel like it always ends up pretty tough at some point.
Yeah, last year was the first year where I felt like I kind of had and the no quarterback in the top, 18 picks or whatever made it easier, I thought, just because you just kind of worked your way and then pick the pick, and if you know one, you lock it in, and then last year felt a lot easier than this to me, but yeah, most years this is pretty rough.
So, Eric, we see, flash across all these players with pre-draft visits, and the article came out today, the Kalijah Cansey quote that he had no pre-draft visits in this process. I guess for people listening, how important are the pre-draft visits in terms of predicting where a player is going to go? Does it matter? Does it not matter? What's the deal with pre-draft visits?
Yeah, they're interesting, right? I mean, like do I look at him and sort of pay attention to him? Of course. But what I end up usually doing is just looking like, okay, the Packers have brought in 6 tight ends. That's a good number, for that position. That's a big number. They're going to draft a tight end. Is it 15 or is it Musgrave at 45? Whatever. I think of it like in those terms, or interesting, this team didn't bring in this position at all. I mean, does that matter? I don't know. I guess what I should do is spend more time in May. I prefer to be by the beach, but spend more time in May thinking about like, what did those visits matter, right? Like, let's see how many of those teams actually drafted those players, because I feel like I'm giving you more of an anecdotal answer than a real hard data one. I haven't seen a lot of that reported before, so maybe I'll look into that. But yeah, I tend to just look at it like that. The Cansey thing is pretty fascinating, though. I mean, you'd think for a top 50 guy, even if they did the car wash at the combine and met with 24 teams or whatever the heck it is, you'd think there'd still be one that, we see multiple, like the Bears have had like 7 or 8 guys they've met multiple times with and made it very public who they're, it's just interesting that somebody who, at least has been sort of comped to Aaron Donald. I don't think he's that, but you know what I mean? Like, yeah, that he's not made a visit yet. I didn't know that. That's really interesting.
I don't want to make this all about the QBs, but there's been some reports come out today about CJ Stroud. So I feel like I have to see what you've heard about this. Said reports coming out that he bombed the S2 test or whatever that apparently predicts success for quarterbacks. Reports that he's hard to coach, which me and Shane talked about this beforehand, doesn't really seem to match up with what we've heard. And then he apparently ghosted the Manning Academy, which that was said in a podcast by Brady Quinn. So have you heard about any of this, and do you buy any of it?
Well, first of all, I was supposed to go to the Manning camp last year. I assume it was last year if he was like a counselor or something like that. I'm guessing. I don't know when this alleged Manning snubbing occurred, but first of all, don't underweight the heft of the Manning pull. I mean, honestly, like they're like the sweet talking, football mafia, man. Like you cross any of them, they can get on you. But I'm kidding. I love them. They're great. But yeah, I don't know any of that specifically. I mean, I've heard mostly good things, that he's a sort of a humble kid, not exactly, I mean, he's a winner. He's a cool, calm, collected guy. I don't know about the ego or the big head or anything like that. Just not something I've specifically heard. So this is all a little bit new to me, and I wonder, I mean, he was kind of, I think his teammates saw him as like this super chill guy. Like he wasn't intense. He wasn't big time. He was, I mean, his dad and that whole situation, that would be pretty humbling, I think. And I don't know. It just feels like it runs anathema to what I've heard to this point.
Yeah. What who are some players maybe that you're higher on, no matter what their draft capital is going to be like, that you watched, you're like, hey, I think this guy's going to be good or better than where he'll get drafted?
Well, that's a good question. It's funny because I haven't been able to ask, like, I poke around and see what other people say at later in the process. I really try to avoid mock drafts till about March, just looking at them for bias reasons. I don't want to, I want to be able to figure it out myself and do it that way. I mean, you can't avoid it, right? Um, so I don't know where Tyreek Stevenson is kind of rated to go. I mean, what have you guys been hearing range wise? I don't think I've even asked anybody personnel wise about him as far as that guy. I'm guessing day 2, but like what any other outside of that range that you guys have heard at all?
Most of the simulators that I've gone through, he ends up coming off the board somewhere between like 60 and 80. So
okay, yeah. So then I probably do like him a little bit better than that. I would probably have him. I think my last top 100 list, I want to say was like in the 65 to 75 range. I don't remember exactly where, but something like that. And I don't know. I see a pretty good player. I mean, he's got some stuff he's got to clean up a little bit, but some extra steps. He'll get thrown off balance a little bit, and there's a little bit of stiffness there, but boy, I think his instincts are really good. He's a tough hitter and tackler. He's got nice length. His physical traits are really good. I just, he got his hands on a lot of passes the last couple of years. Not a high interception total. I don't know, 3 or 4 in his career or something like that, but good arm length, good athleticism, pretty clean injury history that I think he's had a couple little minor things, but I like the player and feel like once he got to Miami, he, sort of blossomed a little bit. And so I'd take that guy at the end of the second round or early third. Absolutely.
I like it. So we talked a little bit about Arizona at 3. Go on the record right now. Who is the team that's trading up to 3? Because we know at this point it would almost be a shock if they didn't move out of 3, right?
Yeah.
So who's the team that's going to come up?
I mean, I guess I guess there could be a stunner at 2 that throws everything on hold, right? But yeah, you're right. I think 3 is the action spot. Caserio said there was action at 2. I kind of think they're going to be stuck there. I don't know that anybody's going to call their bluff. I think they're really going to end up having to make a pick. So 3 is probably the spot. And I'll throw a team out there. Well, first of all, I'd heard the Titans were kind of sniffing around a little bit. That was more of a last week rumor, but I don't, again, the timing of these things. I went back, and this is an experiment I did one year. I went back and kept kind of closer notes of who told me what and when and all that stuff. And the highest percentage of good information that I got was either at the combine or like almost immediately afterward, from like April 1st on, less so. Right. So anyway, the point being, what were we talking about? I got off balance.
Who's the team that's going to come up to 3?
Right. It's like, what point am I making? So I'd heard Titans were a team to watch, but I think it could be the Raiders. So especially if Stroud were to slip, I could see that pairing making a lot of sense. I mean, McDaniels wants that kind of slow pulse guy who's accurate. I think, you'll give up a little arm strength for, some of the intangible stuff that I think Stroud has. So that's a possibility, because with Garoppolo there, first of all, it's a 1-year deal essentially, and we know his injury history, and that's kind of a big deal. I mean, and I think they're in the quarterback market, so they're one to watch. You guys got any other ideas about who might be moving up in that spot?
I like the Colts.
I feel like they're
3.
so just like, no, we're gonna,
especially if Stroud's on the board. If Stroud's on the board, it's like I've already got a deal in place for this scenario. I mean, if I'm the Colts,
what you're saying makes perfect sense to me. And if they did it, bravo, go get him, right? Like if that's your guy, go get him. But I just don't know if they're gonna do that. Like the one takeaway I got from, maybe I'm misreading it, but like Chris Ballard at the combine, he did a little session off to the side, and he basically said, he's like, you hate to move up and give up those picks unless it's the right guy. And he just, like that little grimace in his face. It was almost like he was prepping us for the idea that I think he likes, if I had to guess, Bryce Young a lot, Stroud, but I think Levis is somebody that he's really into. I think would he trade up for Levis with Stroud on the board? Is that even a possibility?
Could happen. Someone could.
I mean, that would be
for the sake of our live stream. I really hope that's not during the time that I'm in here on Thursday night, because I may go all Shane Bruce Urban if that was the case.
The veins in your neck, right? Yeah.
Popping.
Oh my God. I think something weird is going to happen up there. I don't know what, but I think we'll see. We'll have an early shocker in this draft.
Yeah, well, we'll see if it happens. If number 2 gets known, maybe it happens pre-draft. We could. Real quick, talk about this receiver class a bit. I feel like I'm higher on it than the NFL seems to be, but mock drafts still have 4 or 5 sometimes receivers going in the first round. Like, there seems to be some cognitive dissonance here.
I agree. Yeah. And first of all, I thought and I really like Bob McGinn. I've known him. He's always been nice to me or whatever. Like, first, when his, what they call like his hit pieces, right? I'm laughing, right? Like the scouts just taking a dump all over every single player in the league, and everybody sucks. And, so of course today is like Bob McGinn wide receiver tight end day. And I was reading it earlier, just getting a good, late draft season chuckle at that. But I think it's a little harsh to be like, this is the worst class to ever exist. And what are we doing here? Really? This is the worst ever? Or maybe is it lacking some size? Yeah. Overall, I think there's a lot of small guys. Is it lacking some high end, like Jamar Chase, Jefferson type receivers? Absolutely. Yeah. Right. We're projecting if we say that Jackson Smith and Jigba is our number 1 receiver, which I am, we're saying like, yeah, he was all right. He missed last year. I mean, so did Jamar Chase. He sat out the season. But the point is, like, he was hurt, and we didn't get a 40 time from him at the combine. We had to wait till the pro day, and so yeah, I mean, there's a few hangups there. He's not your typical number 1 receiver in this class. So there's some warts. There's some injury stuff, obviously, in some of the middle round guys, and some incomplete portfolios, but I think the more I look at it, the more I realize there'll be some solid Robins, just not as many Batman.
That seems fair.
Yep.
Last question, Eric. We'll let you go. We'll make it a 2-part question just for fun.
Yeah.
Who is a surprise name that's going to go in round 1, and who is one that we've seen off mocked into round 1 that's going to fall out?
Good one. Okay. So I don't know how much of a surprise would Emmanuel Forbes be a surprise. I don't know. You tell me. Is that big enough, or should I go bigger?
At this point, I would say no.
Okay. What about Keon White? I mean, I think probably people have at least gotten to the idea that, okay, I guess somebody could take this guy in round 1. I've heard there are a couple teams that have kind of looked hard at him. So there's another one that maybe is, in slightly off the radar, I guess. Let's put it this way. I don't know that we're going to get 5 receivers. 4 is probably the number, maybe. Could Quentin Johnston fall to round 2?
Very possible.
I think he does, man. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure he goes in round 1, and it would be a little bit out of line with recent years, I think. Check me if I'm wrong, but to have, if we're all arguing they're roughly in the same vicinity, ceiling wise or whatever, different players and all that, but like to have 3 small guys or maybe 4 small guys go before the first over 6 foot receiver to go, that might be a little unusual, but I guess I wouldn't be shocked if it happened. Like the pro day was unimpressive. He's a specific type of tackle breaker that I don't think will quite translate at the next level. He doesn't, I don't know. Do you guys view him as like a 50-50 ball guy? I didn't see a ton of like, jostling in the air to get it. And I don't know. He's like a less sexy Mike Williams or something. I don't know how I feel about the guy, but that's one that might surprise some people, I think.
Well, he's Brian's wide receiver one. We fight about him a bit because I don't think he's a contested catcher. He doesn't play like a big receiver, and that's
right. He doesn't play in the
him.
air, yeah. But he's fast, though. I mean, he moves, and he just wishes his hands were a little more natural. And I don't hate him. I don't at all. He can turn it on. He took over that Kansas game. He's taken over a billion games. But I'm ambivalent, I guess, about his upside.
I'm with you. And to go back to Forbes, I think he's going to end up in that in the back. I think people are going to go back to the tape and see, despite being 166 pounds, he plays like a wrecking ball. And there isn't another corner in this class that's got the ball skills that he has.
Boom. That's it.
So,
that's the sale point right there.
Yeah. After the combine, I backed off a little bit, and I was like, 166 pounds, man, that don't fly. But then, you go back and you start thinking about it, and it's like, nah, man, no, them ball skills, that's round one all day.
I know. And you're willing to live with a couple of, he guesses and he jumps some stuff but like he makes up for it all the time. I love him. I kind of think he's unusual and the weight is an issue, just like it is for Bryce and, any other position where you're undersized like that and you're worried if they can take the wear and tear. And, maybe it's not quite as big a deal because he has the mentality, obviously, to play a physical game but those smaller guys are the ones who are more prone to the hamstrings and the groins and all that too. So I don't know, but he's smooth, man.
Yeah. Well, me and Shane both love him. So you're preaching to the choir here. But Eric, man, there aren't many people out there that do it better than you, and we can't appreciate it enough. You coming on right this close to the draft. We know how busy you are, and we can't thank you enough for coming on with us tonight.
Yeah, my pleasure. It was a good chat, and I'll have to give you guys a post Kansas City versus Mobile barbecue showdown. Like, I'll see if I can do like a taste test while I'm there. And I don't know. It's a tough one because I like Kansas City, but I like the Mobile style too. So
as long as you avoid Dreamland barbecue and don't let that be the deciding factor in Mobile, we'll be okay.
Fair enough. I've been there before, so we can say we've already done that one. Yeah. So.
Eric, tell everybody where we can find your stuff this close to the draft.
Yeah, it's at NFL.com. I'm on Twitter sometimes. I've been less on there lately, but draft, I'll be all in. Eric with a C _EDHOLM. And let's have some fun next week, boys.
Love it, man. Eric, appreciate you, man. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, take it easy.